at this game.
Buchman one step closer to the promised land. Akenhead survived again. Say hello to the November 9. This is the greatest tournament in the world!
There can be only one person who is better at what they do than anyone who has ever walked the earth. One legend, one icon, one who is the greatest of all time. This is poker's pantheon. Tonight, the debate begins. Is he the one?
Phil Ivey, he's great at cash games, online, and tournaments. No one else can say that. No one.
Imagine the world's best poker player winning the world's biggest tournament. That's just awesome.
I never thought I would see a pro win this tournament again. So if Phil does it, he may be the best player of all time.
At age 32, Phil Ivey has already won 7 bracelets. Now he has the chance to take down the big one, to capture $8.5 million, and to stake his claim that he is the best poker player who ever lived.
This is the biggest moment of my career. You don't get too many opportunities like this. And if I play my game, I like my chances.
Between Ivey and immortality stand 8 men, each hoping to etch his name into poker history, including a poker veteran making a return trip to the final table.
I've been here before. Now I want to win it all.
A Wall Street executive looking for an unlikely payday.
There's a reason I've made it this far, and there's no reason I can't go all the way.
A young gun who could rewrite the record books.
We're just a kid with a dream, and it may actually come true.
And a mild-mannered logger who just happens to be the overwhelming chip leader.
Ivey is incredible. Heck, all these guys can play, but I didn't come here to lose.
The World Series of Poker Main Event Final Table. 9 men, the November 9. And if Ivey can beat them all, he may become the one. In the end, there will indeed be only one. But at the start of the day, thousands of fans lined up outside the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio. Everyone came to cheer for their favorite player, and when the gates were finally opened, the anticipation grew.
It's like a madhouse.
Then it was time for the players to arrive and the festivities to get underway.
He's ready.
Welcome, everyone, to the World Series of Poker presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. I'm Lon McCarran, along with Norman Chad, and this is the most anticipated final table in poker history.
This is a ridiculous scene in here, Lon. Quite a long way from Fremont Street in the old days at the Horseshoe.
And poker's elite are out en masse as well to watch this historic final table as the November 9 are getting ready to battle it out for poker's biggest prize.
This is the 40th annual World Series of Poker, and in that time, the main event has become a place of possibilities, the home to fairy tale endings and life-changing new beginnings. 6,494 players chased that elusive dream this year, and Norman, our final table is now set. 9 players who each embody this grand event in their own unique way.
Lon, the main event is about the improbable. The main event is about the unimaginable. The main event is about Darvin Moon. We love to say anyone can win the big one. Well, in World Series history, is there anyone more unlikely than Darvin Moon? Most of me, of course, tonight will be rooting for my main man, Phil Ivey. But part of me will be rooting for the logger from Western Maryland to walk in from the woods and walk away with $8.5 million.
There is the World Championship bracelet. Now let's get to know the November 9. James Akenhead hopes to become the first British-born player to win the main event, but the short stack owns only 4% of the chips in play. With $9.5 million is the other European at this table, France's Antoine Saout, whose first main event is translated into his first final table.
Then there is my man, Phil Ivey. Even though he is short on chips, he is still the most feared player at this or any table. The oldest member of the November 9, 52-year-old Kevin Schaffel, has almost $12.4 million.
Next is 21-year-old Joe Cada, who could break Peter Eastgate's record as the youngest main event champ. Jeff Shulman is making his second main event final table appearance. He's currently in fourth place with over $19.5 million.
Former Bear Stearns executive Steve Begleiter is about $8 million over chip average, while fellow New Yorker Eric Buchman is second in chips with nearly $35 million.
But they're all chasing Darvin Moon. The logger from Maryland currently sits atop the leaderboard, holding 30% of the chips in play. Away we go. 6,494 began the main event. 9 remain. Tonight, $8.5 million will be awarded, along with the coveted gold bracelet. The blinds are $150,000 and $300,000 with a $40,000 chip ante.
I don't know if it's the presence of Phil Ivey or the implausibility of Darvin Moon, but what a buzz this final table has created.
Action folded over to Darvin Moon on the Jack Link's Beef Jerky Pocket Cam Ace Tray-Off suit.
Darvin has no credit card, no email address, no poker resume, but all eyes on the chip leader.
He will limp in for $300,000. James Akenhead, the short stack of the table, will not play. To Phil Ivey, one of the short stacks with Jack 10 offsuit.
And the small blind says he's just going to take it one hand at a time. Suddenly he's an NFL coach.
Phil makes the call to Kevin Schaffel in the big blind with pocket nines.
Schaffel, the oldest player here, just turned 52. With 2 limpers in front of you, you usually raise with the nines. However, the 2 limpers are the chip leader and Phil Ivey.
Schaffel was 1 card from a day 1 bust out. River to full house, and here he is, a member of the November 9. A raise to $1.2 million. Back to Darvin Moon now.
Before the final table, we saw Darvin play mostly premium hands. He's told some people he was going to sit tight here early. He's told others he's going to change it up. Let's see which Darvin shows up today.
Raise.
Well, Norman, here comes the Darvin changeup, making a raise with a pretty weak hand. Darvin makes it $3.3 million. Darvin's wife, Wendy, on the right, along with Darvin's mom and sister.
Phil Ivey would have to put 1/3 of his remaining chips in.
Phil lays down his Jack 10, now to the pocket nines of Kevin Schaffel. Kevin brought about 100 people with him, the cheering section headed by his brother, Jordan.
To call Moon's raise, Schaffel would need about 1/3 of his remaining chip stack.
An early big decision for Kevin Schaffel. And he will lay that hand down to Darvin Moon.
So Darvin is not going to sit on his big stack. He's going to be a bully with the big stack.
Darvin was the definitive underdog in that hand, but forces out all comers, including Phil Ivey. So a new moon has come to Las Vegas this November. Darvin with almost $61 million. Let's take a look at the FullTiltPoker.net final table ticker for the seat assignments. Darvin Moon in seat 1. Phil Ivey in seat 3, happy to have the big stack on his right. Schaffel and Begleiter, who became friends here at the main event, are seated next to each other. Jeff Shulman is in seat 9, right next to the dealer, and Jeff looks down at pocket 5s.
Shulman joins Mike Matusow and Dan Harrington as the only players to make the main event final table twice this decade.
And with those pocket 5s, Shulman with a raise to $1.25 million. There's Phil Hellmuth, hired by Jeff to help him win the main event bracelet.
Boy, I hope Jeff doesn't become Poker Brat 2 at the table.
Next in line, Darvin Moon, Jack 6 offsuit. He will lay it down. Akenhead gives it up now to Phil Ivey. Started this table with 5% of the chips only. Pocket kings for Ivey.
Ivey prepared for this final table by going to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Every day he lifted weights, did cardio, yoga, and played some golf.
Ivey taking it one hand at a time, and here's one hand that he can really take advantage of.
All in.
Ivey is all in for almost $8.7 million. And up come the Humphreys, who made the trip here to Las Vegas for the championship table.
Boy, they haven't stood up that quick since the Carter administration.
Still action behind Phil.
Well, with Shulman, maybe the tightest player here, raising from early position, the rest of the table knows Phil Ivey would not go all in without a monster hand.
And the big blind pocket 10s for Joe Cada.
Cada and Ivey have battled before. This is a bad spot for pocket 10s. It would be for most of Joe Cada's chips.
21-year-old from Shelby Township, Michigan, trying to become the youngest main event champ ever.
Cada conflicted. He'd love to get rid of Ivey, but he'd hate to be the Schmiegel who doubles him up.
That's so close.
And he mucks the 10s.
And now I can't imagine the pocket 5s calling here. You need a crowbar to pry chips away from Jeff Shulman at this main event.
What would Coach Hellmuth do in this situation? Shulman does lay it down, and Phil Ivey will take that pot. Ivey up to $10.7 million.
There's very close hands there. There's only a few that I can like have tough decisions with. And you probably know those few.
Maybe I do.
Joe wondering how good a read Phil had on him.
You had a guess.
What you had? I guess you had jacks. I don't know.
Pretty good guess.
Tens?
So Phil Ivey gets a little stronger, and the message is clear. No one else at this final table wants to see this man with more chips.
The 2009 World Series of Poker is presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Feed your wild side. And in part by WSOPmobile.com. Get the WSOP Hold'em Legend game for your phone or iPhone. And PokerStars.net, the world's largest poker site. The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Welcome back to the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio. Right now, let's take a look at our chip count brought to you by PokerStars.net. Darvin Moon remains in first place with a little over 60 million and 31% of the chips in play. 6 players are under the chip average of 21.6 million, including Phil Ivey, who got a little richer, which got the attention of everyone at the table. But they should take solace in the fact that even though Phil may be the best player at the table, he still makes mistakes just like the rest of us.
Smith and Ivey. Ivey with pocket eights and a flush draw. River card, ace of spades. Ivey with a check mark, hitting his flush.
I was watching it on my TiVo, and when I watched it, I just couldn't believe it.
Smith shows his aces up. Ivey mucks his flush.
He just mucked his hand?
I was just stunned. I just couldn't believe it. So I rewinded it like 20 times.
Phil, you had a flush. 5 suited cards is a flush.
I was like, I think they might have made a mistake.
Phil Ivey mucked the winner.
But apparently, I guess you did. so it's really funny because I never look back at my hand once. I kind of just take for granted I know what I have because I play so many poker hands. I didn't look back at my hand. I didn't see 4 spades on the board. So that's that.
Phil, you misread your hand. You misread your hand. How could you misread your hand?
I knew I was going to get 100 phone calls about my friends making fun of me. So I'm betting on you. You don't even know what hand you have.
I am barring Phil from the big game for 30 days.
Of course, if any one of my poker buddies did that, I would be all over them.
The rest of us sometimes misread our hands. Phil Ivey is not allowed to.
Actually, I'm glad it happened because if I didn't throw away that hand, I might not be here. Everything would be different. So I learned from it. I'm glad it happened. But I look back at my hand now a couple times, especially before I throw my hand in.
I now believe Phil did that on purpose. It's all part of his master plan to psych everyone out, win the main event, and conquer the world.
Action on the short stack. James Akenhead, who along with Antoine Saout made the main event final table at the World Series of Poker Europe during the layoff. He's got king-queen offsuit.
And that equaled Ivan Demidov's feat from last year.
And Akenhead moves all in for his last 4 million chips. And his rooting section on their feet. Phil Ivey. Jack 9 into the muck. Now 2 big stacks. Steve Begleiter, the 3rd biggest at the table with pocket 10s.
Begleiter's 3 children, already poker savvy and his harshest critics. His 11-year-old son Aaron told him he wouldn't make it past day 1.
Steve said that was a big motivator for him.
I call.
He makes the call. So James Akenhead is at risk. And his cheering section on pins and needles. 2008 November Nighter Elon Schwartz has been advising Begleiter recently. Steve's dad and wife are here also. So now the 2nd biggest stack, Eric Buchman. Looks down at ace-king.
Buchman didn't get a coach and decided to play less poker during the break. He said, practicing against strangers is not going to help me against these folks.
Eric Buchman puts out a re-raise to 12.1 million, turning up the heat on Begleiter.
And with Buchman's re-raise, Akenhead has to know he's in big trouble. If British poker fans are anything like soccer fans, I wouldn't want to be the guy to knock out Akenhead.
Buchman's brother and parents watching this drama unfold. Action back to Begleiter now.
Begleiter with the best hand. But is he willing to risk a chunk of his chips with pocket 10s?
He is not. He lays it down. So Akenhead against Buchman, king-queen against ace-king.
Buchman has Akenhead dominated. Akenhead is all in.
Begleiter sees now he had the best of it pre-flop.
I need a queen. King-queen, king-queen.
Akenhead finished 9th at the World Series Europe, trying to avoid that fate here.
The English always love the queen.
Akenhead at risk, a 3-1 dog to Eric Buchman. Now the flop with our first November Niner at risk. It is deuce, trade, jack. Nothing in there for Akenhead.
Good news for Eric Buchman. He's in a much more dominant position. Akenhead now will need runner for a straight or that queen to stick around.
Turn card is a king that pairs both, and Akenhead down to perhaps his last card.
That king makes no difference to Akenhead. He still needs a queen.
Card here. No queen.
No queen. Buchman's family hoping for anything but a queen. Akenhead came here as the short stack. He and his mates hoping he can survive and triple up.
Akenhead needs a queen or he is wamboozled.
The river card. Oh, it's the queen! Akenhead triples up.
And Eric Buchman has an Akenhead.
What a card for James Akenhead. Akenhead now working with almost $13 million.
Buchman has told us people always suck out on him. He knows of what he speaks.
And James Akenhead is the latest to do it to him. And that win keeps Akenhead's $8.5 million dream alive at this championship table. Now it's time for Straight from the Pros, brought to you by PokerStars.net. On his way to becoming the 2003 main event champion, Chris Moneymaker first had to deal with two-time champ Johnny Chan.
I didn't play many pots because he was re-raising me and he was abusing me. But I got into a position where I had a suited ace on the button, a good chance to take down the blinds in position. So I raised the button and he flat calls.
And this is a good flop for Moneymaker.
A dream flop for me. He checked to me and I bet, and then he raises.
Come on.
Chris Moneymaker laying down the challenge to Johnny Chan.
I'm like, wow, how did I get mixed up with Johnny Chan in this big of a pot? You know, I had no intention of doing this. I'm praying he folds.
All right, we got it.
I'm like, all right, I guess I got to get lucky.
I need a heart, dealer.
I thought I was dead in the hand. I thought he had a bigger ace than me.
Well, yeah, man, in bad shape.
And he flips up his hand. I'm like, oh, what just happened here? I realized at this point, I caught his hand in the cookie jar.
Chris Moneymaker takes down Johnny Chan.
It was a nice feeling getting Johnny Chan off my left and gave me confidence that if I can beat Johnny Chan, I can beat anybody. You know, no one else scares me.
Welcome back to the Rio, where all eyes remain on the short-stacked Phil Ivey.
Ivey can be patient for the moment, but he's going to need cards soon to chip up.
Owning just 5% of the chips on the table, Ivey hoping to take a page from Jerry Yang's playbook, who won the main event after starting with just 6% of the chips in play. Antoine Saout looks down at Jack Deuce offsuit.
Like Darvin Moon, the main event was Antoine's first time in Las Vegas.
He's going to raise it up to 850,000 chips.
Looks like the Frenchman is going to try what we call le bluff.
Shulman lays it down. Over to seat one and Darvin Moon in the small blind. Ace-4 offsuit.
Darvin unsponsored, unfettered, unaffected, unspoiled, and the only one in short sleeves.
He makes the call for 700,000. The big blind Akenhead gets out of the way, so Saout and Moon will see a flop. Flop is King Jack Deuce out with jacks up, giving him a huge advantage.
Well, that hand went from le bluff to le nuts.
We saw Darvin play bully with ace tray earlier. Now it looks like he might be getting frisky with ace 4. He's going to bet $2.3 million.
Again, this is a new Darvin Moon. New, but maybe not improved.
Saout with 2 pair and a raise to $6.75 million.
And that should shut it down for Darvin Moon, who tried to buy this pot on the flop.
Darvin's family seems to understand the gravity of this moment.
All in.
All in from Darvin, enough to put Saout at risk, and he calls immediately.
I doubled him up.
That's a hiccup from Darvin, but one hiccup can lead to a case of hiccups.
Saout in terrific shape to double up and do it through the chip leader. Camp Moon not happy. Antoine's sister, Natalie, part of a large French contingent, many of whom filling the upper seats of the Penn and Teller Theater.
Not the 2 hands I expected.
Darvin's gone from premium hands to junk hands.
I messed up there big time. You still got plenty? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I just figured if he's that strong, he'd have pushed all in over me.
Not sure if Phil is agreeing with Darvin or just trying to move the conversation along.
All right.
Wendy Moon doesn't look all right at the moment. All right, Saout trying to double up. Here's the turn card. Tramp diamonds. Moon with a wheel draw. That's Darvin for you.
The way Darvin usually runs, everyone in the reel must think a 5 is coming.
Wendy calling for a 5.
Antoine Saout needs to avoid a 5 or he will be le wamboozled.
The river's another deuce. Saout seals the win with a rivered full house to double up to almost $22 million.
And the logger from Western Maryland takes a small misstep.
Nobody ready to exit this final table just yet. Darvin needs to clear his head and gather his thoughts after that hand, but that shouldn't be too hard for him, considering that's pretty much how he prepared for the final table.
Either you're going to get good cards and you're going to win, or you're not going to get good cards and they're going to win.
I had the nuts.
Did I hire a coach? No. You can't hire somebody to teach you something that these guys have done their whole life. Instead, I went to Wyoming, me and 4 other guys, 35 miles up in the mountains away from everything. The phones don't work, no electric, no water. They all went hunting. Well, I took my gun out every day and went out in the woods, but I found me a nice, comfortable place and laid down and took a nap. You can't see anything to shoot if you have your eyes closed. So I just get everything else out of my mind and focus directly on cards. We played cards in the cabin every night. We just rag on each other, tell each other, you're terrible. Get up next morning and do it all over. It was good to get away, get your head clear, mentally prepared. I've played every hand I played in this WSOP back through my head.
I'm new at this game.
It still hasn't sunk in where I'm at. This is a fairy tale here.
Oh, really? Run, that's unreal.
Whatever happens, happens. I'd be happy living up in that little one-room cabin with no electric, no water, no nothing. It's just my lifestyle.
No electric and no water at that cabin in Wyoming, and the outhouse is 100 yards away. Boy, you've got to be really pot committed there.
Norman, this is your last shot of the season. It's time for the final table version of the Jack Link's Beef Jerky Wild Card Hand, where you and the folks at home try to figure out one player's hole cards.
Today, I will redeem myself for a lifetime of bad judgments.
All right, so it is folded over to Joe Cada. The 21-year-old has the wild card hand in the cutoff position. Cada with a raise to $1 million.
Well, in the cutoff, he could be stealing here, but his body language tells me he has a strong ace.
That's Joe's girlfriend, Elena. Shulman folds over to Darvin Moon, the chip leader. In the big blind, Darvin with ace-10 offsuit. When he watched himself on TV, Darvin said he was ashamed at how many tells he had and vowed to fix that weakness. He calls for $600,000.
Well, I'm watching Darvin on TV now and just calling with that semi-strong ace. Usually it's a good spot to raise, but he's going to play it Western Maryland style.
The flop is 4-8-9, a couple of clubs, so we know that misses Darvin with his ace high.
And I also think it missed the 21-year-old. I still have him on a big ace. So we're looking at a good old-fashioned Michigan versus Maryland ace-off.
Darvin Moon with the check.
And let's see if Cada is in the mood for a continuation bet.
Nope, just a continuation check if there were such a thing.
Well, he is still staring at the big stack, so he doesn't want to put any more chips at risk at the moment.
All right, turn card is an ace. Moon with the pair of aces.
And Joe Cada with the pair of aces. They both hit their ace.
Darvin checks his top pair.
Darvin might be cagey there, hoping that Cada bets. But Cada has an ace.
Cada bets like he's got an ace, $1.4 million.
Darvin knows Cada could be making a semi-bluff here. It's possible he's on a flush or straight draw. I got to believe Darvin thinks his ace is best. He's got a pair of aces with a decent kicker.
Does Darvin want to come over the top, as we have seen him do numerous times? Nope, just a call.
He could be trying to induce a bluff from Joe Cada on the river if Joe's got nothing.
River card is another 4. Moon with the aces up, and according to you, Cada with aces up. So is it coming down to the kicker, Norman?
Yeah, Cada's got the better kicker. I think he's got a stronger ace than Darvin Moon.
Darvin putting some chips together. $5.5 million in the pot. Darvin bets $2.5 million.
Darvin likes his aces up, but I think Cada's got the better hand. He's got that Jake LaMotta look to him, and he's going to fight back with a big raise.
Darvin Moon trying to take a bite out of young Joe Cada's stack.
$5.5 million.
Cada comes back over the top, a raise to $5.5 million.
What did I tell you? I had this hand cased. Cada's got the better hand. Darvin probably knows at this point that his aces up aren't any good.
$3 million to Moon.
Darvin Moon ought to be careful right here.
Trying to get a read on Joe Cada.
Call.
A call from Moon.
Disagrees with me.
Darvin Moon shows his aces up. Joe Cada, what do you got?
Oh, I don't like Joe's look there.
6 tray of clubs.
Well, I believe I got the first one of the year wrong, the last one of the year wrong, and most of them in between wrong. I'm consistent.
So Joe Cada bluffs off almost 8 million very critical chips and loses the Jack Link's Beef Jerky wild card hand.
Kid, you let me down there, and Darvin again is smarter than he likes to let on.
And that smart call extends Darvin's chip lead. Kevin Schaffel has moved up to 6th place. Phil Ivey's right behind him in 7th, while James Akenhead has fallen on hard times and is once again the short stack.
At this championship table, 3 players are in their 20s, 3 in their 30s, 3 are over 40, so it's not just young guns here.
46-year-old Darvin Moon folds over to James Akenhead, 20 years, his junior, with pocket trays.
Akenhead, a member of the Hit Squad poker team. Before the final table, he prepared by going to Thailand with his buddies and relaxing on the beach.
With pocket trays, Akenhead will move in for about 4.5 million chips.
And his buddies look like they could use some more beach time.
Action on Phil Ivey. Phil looks down at King 6 of Hearts.
A man's got to get something going, but King 6 of Hearts isn't going to do it.
So Kevin Schaffel now with pocket 9s.
Schaffel is a scratch golfer. He says he's going for the double. He wants to win the main event and the U.S. Senior Amateur.
I call.
Schaffel makes the call with his 9s. Akenhead once again at risk. He survived once before. Begleiter gives up his button. Buchman's in the small blind. He folds. Cada in the big blind gives it up. So Akenhead will try to survive his all-in against Kevin Schaffel.
Akenhead second at a World Series final table last year when he got unlucky. Now hoping to get lucky for the second time tonight to keep his main event hopes alive.
Kevin's brother Jordan and the rest of the Schaffel Up and Deal group on their feet.
He owes you this one. Come on, son.
Akenhead looking for any support he can get. The flop is 10, deuce 7, and that's pretty much all blanks for Akenhead.
Akenhead now has to hope to make a backdoor flush or hit a 3.
James had premonitions about his main event success, but doesn't look like he's feeling it here. The turn card now is another deuce. Akenhead thought he had it. Schaffel was squirming.
It was Schaffel and Akenhead looking at each other, breaking up the tension. Akenhead down to his last card. He needs a 3 or he's going home.
The river card is a 9, and with a full house, Kevin Schaffel makes James Akenhead our first player eliminated from this championship table.
And a great double for Akenhead. 9th in the World Series Europe main event and 9th in the main event here.
Kevin Schaffel being mobbed by his supporters. James Akenhead being consoled by his 9th place worth almost $1.3 million. A valiant run at the 2009 main event has come to an end for James Akenhead, and the November 9 is now down to 8. You saw the championship banners that were hanging inside the Rio Poker Room. One of our remaining 8 players will soon join that elite group. Maybe Kevin Schaffel, who woke up with aces. He's up against the pocket kings of Eric Buchman, who is contemplating a call of $10.5 million.
Buchman had re-raised Schaffel, and now Schaffel has 4-bet it. But I don't see how Eric Buchman can say bye-bye to pocket kings here.
I call.
He does make the call.
I call.
And Buchman hates to see the aces.
Aces, king.
The Schaffel crowd loves this matchup. The Buchman family not so happy.
Eric Buchman stands to lose half his stack here, and Kevin Schaffel is poised to move up to second on the leaderboard.
All right, here's the flop. Oh, and there's a king for Eric Buchman.
And Kevin Schaffel just went from the best of hands to the worst of luck.
Schaffel's ace is now looking for a lifeline. Buchman looking for the knockout.
Schaffel can still make a straight with a 10, or he needs an ace. Otherwise, he will be gone.
Schaffel understands just how thin he's drawing. The turn card. Oh! King! And the quads for Buchman. Knockout Kevin Schaffel in 8th place. Kevin gets a hug from his friend on the way out. Schaffel's group is stunned in the upper reaches of the Penn and Teller Theater, and Jordan Schaffel can't believe his brother's aces were cracked.
Eric Buchman likes to complain that people suck out on him. Well, he can put that complaint to rest. He's running lucky.
Kevin Schaffel earns $1.3 million for his 8th place finish. Eric Buchman stacked balloons to almost $52 million.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. But that's not how I wanted to go out.
To the victor go the spoils, and Buchman now finds himself in 2nd place. Darvin Moon's once dominant chip lead is being threatened. Meanwhile, Phil Ivey still near the bottom looking up. Joe Cada is the short stack. Back to action on chip leader Darvin Moon on the Jack Link's Beef Jerky Pocket Cam. He has King-Queen offsuit.
Darvin from Oakland, Maryland, population 1,900, or fewer people than Darvin played against here on day 1.
A raise to 1.3, Ivey folds.
Ivey leans back, apparently a little frustrated with the cards he's been getting.
Steve Begleiter with ace-queen of spades.
Begleiter's wearing the same shirt, same pants, same hat as he did earlier in the main event. He says respect the streak.
Before this final table, he says he never played a hand against Darvin Moon, but he's going to raise the chip leader to $3.9 million. Begleiter says he's a big Darvin Moon fan and that Darvin is a better player than Darvin advertises. Folded over to Jeff Shulman. Shulman will lay it down. So the re-raise back to Darvin Moon. And he makes the call for $2.6 million more.
So finally, Wall Street against the Woodsman.
All right, the flop now. Tray 4 deuce. Begleiter with flush and straight draws.
And the flop completely misses Darvin Moon.
And Moon will check. Begleiter reaching for chips right away. And he will bet $5.35 million.
That's a big bet, particularly in this economy.
Steve's wife, Karen, sees her husband getting into a big hand.
Darvin completely missed the flop, but it looks like he might have missed the memo that he's supposed to fold.
I think you're right, Norman. He's eyeing his chips. And now Darvin Moon with those big logger paws raises the action to $15 million.
Boy, Darvin Moon's gone hunting here without a rifle.
Karen Begleiter feeling the heat too as this pot builds to near $30 million.
You know, now might not be the best time for a Kodak moment. Steve Begleiter with a huge drawing hand here, facing Darvin Moon's big raise.
A critical moment for Begleiter with those draws, but still just with ace high, jousting with the man who's been running red hot at the main event.
I'm all in.
And Begleiter comes over the top, all in. Elon Schwartz hoping Steve is doing the right thing here.
Come on, Steven!
Wow.
Wow is Western Maryland for. I'm in deep doo-doo.
Darvin Moon has dug himself a huge hole.
His big raise was his big mistake here.
It don't matter how much it is, either I'm calling or I'm not.
Darvin's getting 7.5 to 1 on a call here. You'd think he has to call, but he's got nuclear squad douche, and probably the pot odds are against him. On the other hand, Darvin needs just 14% of his stack to call here, and he'd have a chance to knock off a player. Quite a pickle.
Darvin's really not a math guy. If he feels he's beat, he's beat. And he will lay this down. Steve Begleiter takes that pot. Steve Begleiter with almost 45 million chips. And with Darvin Moon giving away 19 million, Eric Buchman is now the final table chip leader. And Steve Begleiter and his family have good reason to celebrate.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Welcome back to the Rio, where Steve Begleiter must be feeling good after taking a big chunk of Darvin Moon stack. Right now, action is on Jeff Shulman, who looks down at pocket nines.
Shulman said his final table approach would be avoid making mistakes and don't open up until four-handed, and indeed he's played very snug.
A raise to $1.5 million with his pocket nines. Ivey now with king-queen offsuit in the big blind.
Barry Greenstein said he didn't think Phil would ever get this good, but credits him for spending a couple of years on the internet, improving his shorthanded game and his hold'em game.
Come on, in.
All in from Phil Ivey. That's for about $8.5 million total.
Ivey with a precarious all-in. He might read Shulman's hand as weak, or he might figure Shulman doesn't want to play a big pot here.
The Humphreys are concerned. Mel with his fingers crossed for good luck. Phil Hellmuth hoping his charge makes the correct decision.
If Shulman calls here, Ivey will be an underdog for his main event life. Frankly, I'm getting a bit scared. This isn't the way I saw things playing out.
This would be for about half of Jeff Shulman's remaining chips.
If Shulman had raised from early position, I don't think Ivey makes this move, but he doesn't think Shulman's hand is as strong raising from the button.
And Shulman will lay it down to Phil Ivey's pressure. And a sigh of relief from Ivey's most loyal fans.
I guess Coach Hellmuth's no Vince Lombardi. Shulman decides to wait for a better spot. Chips are power here, and my main man has been powerless at this final table. He gets a few more right there.
Any pot Ivey wins is scary for the rest of the table. You always hear how Phil is a closer. Take a look at these stats. When he makes a World Series final table, he wins the bracelet 35% of the time. And watch out if he gets heads up, because he's batting .700. All right, action on Steve Begleiter with pocket sevens.
There once was a moneymaker effect. Steve thinks his success might lead to a Begleiter effect. Everyone in Chappaqua, New York wants to get good at poker.
Raised to $1.25 million. The blinds are up to $250,000 and $500,000 with a $50,000 chip ante. Jeff Shulman lays it down. Darvin Moon will not play this hand. So in the big blind, Phil Ivey with ace-9 of diamonds.
Phil used to have a small journal he'd fill with strategy and player observations, but he lost that journal, so now he just has a mental notebook.
Ivey makes the call to go heads up with Steve Begleiter. The flop is all paint. Queen, Jack, King. Ivey with flush and straight draws is favored. Begleiter still with the best hand with his sevens.
You see the percentages. Great for Ivey, but he will check right here and respect Begleiter's pre-flop under the gun raise.
On playing Phil Ivey, Begleiter said, okay, Phil knows what he has. Phil knows what I have. I only know what I have. This is not a good situation for me. Begleiter bets $1.75 million.
I'd love Phil to check raise here, but that's risky business with his chip stack.
No check raise from Phil, just a call, and he'll pay to try to hit his draws. All right, the turn card now. It's a jack.
Well, now a king or a queen would also give Ivey two pair with a better kicker, but Begleiter's jacks and sevens continue to lead.
Ivey checks again.
Ivey hasn't made a hand yet, trying to keep the pot small.
Begleiter will give Ivey a free river card. Phil trying to find some way to win this pot. River card is a tray of hearts. Ivey misses all his draws. Begleiter gets the check mark.
Phil Ivey cannot win this pot unless he bets at it.
Mel Humphreys with the fingers crossed.
Of course, Phil here can just check, concede the pot, and play for another one.
$6.6 million in the pot, and Ivey's going to bet at it $2.5 million.
A bluff disguised as a value bet by Phil Ivey. Let's see if the amateur can sniff it out.
Phil told us much of his success comes because he has a good feel for what people are thinking. Begleiter sees a lot of overcards out there, and Phil Ivey betting into him, and Begleiter lays down the best hand.
I'm starting to get that loving Phil Ivey feeling back, Lon.
The crowd loves to see Ivey take in that pot. And Begleiter can't stand to watch Ivey stacking his winnings and wonders if he was had.
And remember, no established pro has won this main event since 2001. Carlos Mortensen. It looks like my man Phil could be making his move.
Climbing the ladder pretty good, Phil.
It's a long ladder.
It may be a long ladder, sure, but if you're Phil Ivey, no climb is too high.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Welcome back inside the Rio and the packed Penn & Teller Theater. The room's still filled with anticipation. Everyone watching and wondering, can Phil Ivey pull it off? He's now over $16 million, thanks to a couple of recent hands, and pocket jacks could help keep the momentum going.
Raise it.
Ivey will make a raise to $1.25 million.
Phil tied with Billy Baxter for 6th on the all-time World Series bracelet list. Baxter won all his bracelets in low ball. Phil has never won a Hold'em bracelet.
Folded to Antoine Saout. Pocket 7s for the Frenchman.
On the button.
Saout faced with a raise from Phil Ivey. And now Saout comes back with a re-raise to just over $4 million.
Boy, Ivey raised under the gun. It's rare to see someone then 3-bet him. Saout signaling he's got a big hand, but he doesn't.
So back to Ivey now. Needs almost $3 million to call. And Norman, he's working with pocket jacks. You know how I feel about pocket jacks.
Pocket jacks always tricky to play. Saout is pretty tight, and he's made his mark in the poker world very quickly. And right now, he's putting a lot of pressure on Phil's smaller stack.
Phil trying to get a read on the Frenchman.
Oh, Phil will get a read on him. Oh, no.
Ivey mucks the pocket jacks, and Saout will take that pot.
Ivey with the misread. Apparently, jacks act as kryptonite to block my man's reading ability.
Wow. Phil prides himself on his reads, but maybe something got lost in translation.
I love Cassoulet.
In his 4th deep main event run and first final table, Phil finding the road a little rougher than expected. He's down to 15 million chips and in 5th place. Saout in 4th place, Buchman atop the leaderboard, Darvin Moon with a slight advantage over Begleiter, Jeff Shulman the short stack. Joe Cada still alive in his pursuit to become the youngest ever main event champion. He looks down at ace-jack offsuit.
Cada with a similar playing style to Peter Eastgate, both pretty aggressive.
A raise to $1.25 million from the 21-year-old. Saout lays it down to Jeff Shulman with ace-king offsuit.
All in.
Shulman, the short stack, moves all in for just over $7 million.
Shulman has played very few pots today.
Ivey folds king-queen. Begleiter folds. Buchman lays it down. Now Cada asks for an exact count.
I've got 5 words for Joe Cada. Fold it and fold it now. Actually, that's 6 words. Same thing.
You were never good with numbers. Jeff's dad, Barry Shulman, right there, fresh off his World Series of Poker Europe main event victory.
Jeff Shulman would be at risk here if Cada calls. If Cada calls here and loses, he would be crippled.
I call.
He does make the call with ace-jack, and Shulman shows the ace-king.
Cada rather pained with his version of the Peter Eastgate face.
Shulman with a great chance to put a hurt on Cada's chances at making poker history. And as the hands are opened up, everyone sees what Cada needs. Joe's mom, Ann, in the background, feeling the pain of her son.
Jack! Cada trying to beat Eastgate's record, and he's got that Eastgate face down.
Shulman in great shape to double up, but still at risk of elimination. The flop is trade 10-9. Cada comes up short.
Ace-king off in the last hand a player sees, but Shulman now in good position to double up against Joe Cada.
The turn card is a queen, and both players pick up straight draws. Joe's is open-ended. Jeff's is a gut shot. Shulman trying to avoid going out 7th, just as he did in the 2000 main event.
Phil Hellmuth explaining to Team Shulman how good of a coach he is. Jeff Shulman all in. Joe Cada in for almost all of his chips. Cada needs a king or an 8 to eliminate Shulman.
The river card is a 4-up diamond. Shulman will win the hand and double up.
Shulman doesn't look happy, but he should be. Cada devastated, down under 3 million chips.
There is no joy in Cada Town. The 21-year-old is left with only 5 big blinds, and his chance at poker history is on life support. The veteran Jeff Shulman has once again climbed over 15 million, and his quest to one-up his dad and win poker's biggest prize is still alive.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Welcome back to the Rio and the Penn and Teller Theater. As you can see on the PokerStars.net chip count, Eric Buchman is on top. Jeff Shulman is nearing 15 million, just behind Phil Ivey, but ahead of Joe Cada, who's doubled up since being crippled. Cada still the short stack. On the Jack Link's Beef Jerky pocket cam, Shulman looks down at 6-5 offsuit.
Shulman has mucked a lot of hands. He's been playing it very close to the vest.
Folded to Phil Ivey, who started this final table with almost 10 million chips. He's up to 15 million now. He has ace-8 offsuit.
Ivey has been almost as patient as Jeff Shulman.
A raise to $1.25 million from Ivey.
So that time to play aggressive.
Begleiter lays it down, as does Buchman. Now on 21-year-old Joe Cada with pocket fours.
In the small blind.
Joe Cada short stacked.
All in.
And it is time to get aggressive for Cada. All in with those fours.
How much is it?
This would cost Ivey about 1/3 of his chip stack.
Ivey with ace-8.
Ivey wondering if Cada has a big pair or a better ace.
These final table moments becoming more dramatic with every passing hand.
Ivey getting almost 2-1 on a call here. It might be time for him to gamble.
Phil commits the chips.
A crossroads moment for Ivey and Cada. Cada, of course, can be knocked out. Ivey can pick up some valuable chips, or he'll be back down under 20 big blinds.
You're one sick puppy. Huh? You're sick. How could I fold?
Yeah, I know. I was wondering where you took so long.
I was trying to figure out a way to fold.
A reluctant call from Ivey, who's in danger of being bounced back to his starting stack.
If Cada loses his hand, Peter Eastgate's year-old record as youngest main event champ ever will stand.
Here we go to the flop. Cada at risk. Deuce-10 tray. Cada's pocket fours hold up through the flop.
Neither player had been all in and called prior to the final table of this main event. This is a crucial race, and Cada is winning it at the moment.
Phil Ivey trying to find some way to knock off the young Joe Cada. The turn card is a 9. That won't do it. Ivey still trailing.
Cada bobbing and weaving like a boxer, trying to avoid the knockout punch.
What a moment this championship table has come down to for these two strong players. Cada trying to hang on. Ivey trying to pick up some steam.
Ivey looking for help. And Phil Ivey needs an ace or an 8 to end Joe Cada's bid to become the youngest main event champ ever.
The river card is a 7. Joe Cada doubles up. He's up to over 12 million chips.
Back in it. Nice.
And another big blow from a main man, Phil Ivey.
Just a bump in the road.
Well, a bump in the road just knocked Phil under 10 million chips and sent the Cada contingent into a frenzy. Cada doing pretty good considering a short while ago he had just under 3 million chips, and for Ivey, it's back to work. Back to action. The blinds are up to 300 and 600,000 with a 75,000 chip ante. Phil Ivey with Jack of Diamonds and Queen of Hearts. And he'll lay those down. Action on Steve Begleiter. 8-7 of clubs.
Most of Begleiter's home poker league is here. Steve told them, "You give me no advice, I'll provide better snacks for our game."
A raise to $1.5 million from Begleiter. Folded over to Frenchman Antoine Saout in the small blind with ace-king suited.
Last summer, Saout worked loading newspapers into a delivery truck. After 3 months of that, poker looked real good.
Saout might be on the headlines of those newspapers if he wins this tournament. A raise to $4.5 million. Back to Begleiter now.
Who had raised under the gun.
He needs $3 million to call and makes the call.
We know Begleiter likes to defend his blind. Here, I guess he's just going to defend his honor.
Saout and Begleiter will see a flop. It is 8 tray 9, 2 hearts. Begleiter with the best hand with a pair of 8s. Saout with 2 overs and the nut flush draw.
Yeah, both players get their hands into the thick of that flop.
Antoine checks. Begleiter with middle pair now.
It's a good-looking flop for Begleiter, particularly if he puts Saout on a couple of big cards.
And he does bet it, $6.3 million. Saout now. A big drawing hand.
Target.
Announces all in.
Well, I'm sure Begleiter remembers Saout's all-in bluff with ace-queen after Antoine missed the flop on day 8. Begleiter getting great odds to call here. $37 million in the middle, and he just needs to put in another 15.
I think I priced myself into this. I call.
Begleiter makes the call to put Saout at risk.
A coin flip with huge implications. Whoever wins becomes the chip leader. If Antoine Saout loses, he is out of here.
So what a showdown between the amateur Begleiter and the young pro Antoine Saout, who just took up this game seriously about a year ago.
Saout finished 7th at the World Series of Poker Europe main event, trying to avoid that same fate here.
They are fighting for the biggest pot of the main event. The turn card is a heart. Saout turns the flush. And he is our new chip leader.
And a bitter pill for Steve Begleiter to swallow.
Antoine Saout with almost 53 million chips and a chance to be the first French world champion. Begleiter goes from one of the big stacks to one of the small ones.
I haven't seen the French celebrate like this since McDonald's came to Paris.
Antoine Saout started as one of the short stacks, now in great shape to claim this huge prize. Time now for Deal Me In, brought to you by FullTiltPoker.net. In 2008, Mike Matusow was trying to make yet another run at the final table when he found himself in a dangerous hand against Greg Geller.
I've been playing with him all day, and when the guy re-raised me, I thought he had a big pair, like jacks, maybe even queens. And I called.
Flop is 4, king 6.
The king came on the flop and he checked. I knew he had like jacks, and I'd been playing so solid, I just went all in.
This is either a brilliant, gutsy play, or it's, ladies and gentlemen, live from Las Vegas, Nevada, the Mike Matusow blowout.
I don't like putting my tournament life on the line, but my gut feeling said pull the trigger, and
He folds, and Matusow's bluff works.
That's right, baby. Don't worry.
That's a steal.
the style wasn't raised and check. It was something they did different, so just went with it. He folded, and that propelled me all the way to almost winning the tournament.
Welcome back inside the Rio and the Penn & Teller Theater. Mike Matusow, who has made 2 main event final tables, here watching to see who will prove victorious at this one. Right now, Antoine Saout leading the way. Eric Buchman very close behind. Former chip leader Darvin Moon in third. And Norman, I know you hate to hear this, but Phil Ivey, your guy, is the short stack.
It's okay, Lon. Popeye has his spinach, and now my man has his lucky apple from the Humphreys. You know, actually, Ivey is a champion moocher. He eats all day, and he never reaches into his pocket.
Ivey may reach here. He's got ace-king.
I'm all in.
And he does move all in for about $6.5 million.
Phil Ivey's all in. It's casual and cool.
All right, let's see how the rest of this final table reacts. Folded to Shulman. He lays it down now to Darvin Moon in the big blind. He has an ace. Ace-queen. Darvin takes a big swallow. He looks more nervous than Ivey, who has all his chips in the middle.
Well, Phil needs a double up, so I don't think he'd mind hearing ace-queen come on in.
A call.
A call from Darvin Moon to put Phil at risk, but Ivey with the better hand and a chance to double through one of the big stacks. The crowd certainly behind Phil Ivey here.
Lucky apple.
Darvin's family hoping that it's a rotten apple. Darvin has always said these guys can outplay him, so with all the chips in pre-flop, that might be his best chance against the likes of Phil Ivey.
Even if Ivey doubles up, he would still be one of the short stacks, but it would be a move in the right direction. The top poker pros hoping one of their own can hang on.
We're all cheering for a king.
Well, we know Phil is cheering for a king, and I can only assume Darvin is looking for a queen.
Yeah, that queen would put a hurt on Phil.
Good hand. Good hand. Good luck.
Good hand? He said good hand.
It's a good hand. Better than mine, isn't it?
Huh? Oh, yeah.
They're pretty friendly foes.
I'm sorry, Lon, I have to. Ivey, Ivey, Ivey.
All right, Ivey at risk with his ace-king against the ace-queen of Darvin Moon. This entire theater on their feet, anxiously awaiting this flop. Phil Ivey all in. Here's the flop. Oh, and there's a queen! And that sends a dagger through the hopes of Phil Ivey.
My goodness. We're going to need a medic to the broadcast booth.
Not many are celebrating that queen, but the Moons certainly are.
How do they put right in the window?
Mike the Mouth just read my mind. In 2003, everyman Chris Moneymaker took out Ivey with ace-queen. Now, 6 years later, another everyman, Darvin Moon, is poised to take out Ivey with ace-queen again.
All right, the turn card now. Ivey needing help. The tray of clubs is no help.
Close.
He still has a sense of humor.
Phil possibly in the middle of his main event demise. He takes it matter-of-factly. If it has to be anyone, I guess I'm glad it's Darvin Moon who's doing the deed.
Phil Ivey staring elimination right in the face.
Ivey needs a king and a king only, or his 2009 main event is over.
River card is a 5, and that will do it. Phil Ivey eliminated in 7th place from this 2009 main event.
Darvin slays Goliath.
Everyone in the Penn and Teller Theater standing in salute. Quite a testament to Ivey's almost limitless skills that he was favored by many despite his severe chip disadvantage.
Lon, I'm going to need a moment. The mouth again speaks volumes for me.
He knew he would have to negotiate pitfalls and traps and bad luck, but the odds were stacked too high against him tonight.
Phil Ivey is gone, and the greatest player in the game still has not won the game's greatest event.
Phil came to this final table with the desire to be the one. He fell short of the ultimate goal, but proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he is one of the greatest poker players to ever play the game. To the Rio and the final table of the main event, where Darvin Moon just took the remainder of Phil Ivey's chips, ending any hope that Ivey's picture will be the next to go up on the wall of champions.
Lon, I'm going on the record right now. I am picking Phil Ivey to win the main event in 2010.
So with Ivey gone, only 6 remain. Eric Buchman, the chip leader right now, and that leaves Jeff Shulman as the most accomplished player left, but Shulman with a lot of work to do. The man who knocked out Ivey, Darvin Moon, in 3rd place. Back to action, Steve Begleiter under the gun all the way from his home Poker League championship to one of the last 6 players in the main event. He's got pocket queens.
Begleiter's been in a lot of high-pressure business situations. He says he doesn't feel any pressure at this final table.
He will put pressure on the rest of the table, though, with a raise to $1.6 million. Eric Buchman, the chip leader, lays it down, as does Cada. Antoine Saout gives way to Jeff Shulman, who says no thanks to the big blind and Darvin Moon. Darvin looks down at ace-queen. Again, he just knocked off Ivey with ace-queen.
I'm all in.
And he re-raises all in.
And this would push Steve Begleiter all in. Ace-queen is trouble, but Darvin likes the traffic in trouble.
Wendy Moon seems worn out from all these tense moments her husband's putting her through.
Begleiter's got to be feeling a little pressure now.
I call.
He does make the call all in with his 2 queens, and he'll find himself ahead, but not out of the woods.
Darvin Moon keeps telling us he can't outplay the other guys. He has been in a pre-flop gamble and push mode this entire final table.
Steve Begleiter asking for help from his troops.
A showdown between the 2 true amateurs left in the main event.
Steve Begleiter trying to double up through Darvin Moon.
Rural Maryland doesn't cheer quite as loudly as the New York big city types.
All right, here we go to the flop. Begleiter at risk. 7, 4, 8. No danger for Begleiter in that flop.
Now my pulse is up.
Darvin doesn't have a pulse.
Turn card is a trade, no help to Moon. Begleiter poised to become a bigger force at this table.
Darvin hit a 3-outer to topple Ivey. Now looking for another 3-outer to topple Begleiter. Darvin needs an ace and an ace only to knock out Steve Begleiter.
And the river card. Oh, it's an ace! Another Darvin Moon special.
It's Darvin Moon's world. Everyone else at the main event is just passing through.
Begleiter knocked out in 6th place just like that, and Darvin Moon back in the chip lead.
Begleiter played wonderfully at this final table.
I was really impressed. You really played great.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it.
Begleiter did play great. Like his new buddy Kevin Schaffel, he got it in with the best of it and just got unlucky.
There is Schaffel. They both now know what it feels like to come close and fall short.
At this point, I don't believe Darvin Moon can ever be drawn dead.
Begleiter earns almost $1.6 million for 6th place, 20% of that going back to his lucky fellow players of the Newcastle Poker League. Here we go again. It's that unique moment we look forward to each and every year at the main event final table.
We get to take in cases home with us.
The players can look, but they can't touch. Not yet.
A lot of money on the line, so good luck to everyone, though, by the way.
$8.5 million is now here in the Penn and Teller Theater.
Pass it my way.
It is an unbelievable sight and perhaps a little extra pressure for the 5 remaining players. The stakes are literally set on the table.
I was bummed after Ivey got eliminated, but after looking at that, I am once again stoked.
Jeff Shulman with pocket jacks. And Shulman putting together a raise to $1 3/4 million.
Shulman is playing it very tight, but with that style, you do have to pick up hands once in a while.
Folded around to Joe Cada in the small blind with pocket trays.
Cada only 21, but he says he will be crushed if he doesn't win here.
Raise in front of him.
All in.
And he shoves all in. Over $11 million.
Well, there's a good chance he's about to be crushed with those pocket threes.
Saout gave it up. Jeff asking for a count. Shulman would need almost $10 million to make this call and put Cada at risk.
Jeff has picked his spots very carefully.
11.
And he needs to chip up.
Shulman makes the call, and the 2 short stacks will tangle. The 3 other players over 50 million chips, these 2 under 20 million, so both trying to make some noise and chip up.
And Joe Cada's youngest ever bid now in dire straits.
The Shulman camp likes what they see with the jacks against the trays.
2, 4, 5 to make it interesting?
I don't want interesting.
That's pretty much my motto in life.
How about Jack?
How about Jack 3-3?
Jack on the turn.
I didn't know you could negotiate the board.
I'm greedy.
Me too.
Shulman's pocket jacks, a 4-1 favorite to knock out Joe Cada with his pocket trays. And here's the flop. Oh, and there's a tray for Cada to turn the tables on Jeff Shulman.
Cada tearing a page out of Darvin Moon's suck-out book. And oh, look, Coach Helmuth with a silent pep talk for Jeff Shulman.
Jeff facing a crippling defeat here at the hands of young Joe Cada.
The kid with a dream is living a fantasy at this final table.
Turn card is a 7, no help to Jeff Shulman. Cada still good with his set.
Hey, Jack?
Jeff pleading with the dealer.
Helmuth with no game plan here.
I can't watch. I feel like I will cards.
Be a man and watch. Only a river jack now will send Joe Cada home.
The river card is a queen. Another double up for the 21-year-old who's over $23 million now, his high point of the night. The 21-year-old is on a roll. His chance to become the youngest main event champion is alive and well. And for Joe Cada, this moment is a dream come true.
Poker's been my life for some time now. When I was 17, that was when I knew I was going to play in the World Series, and that's when I had to wait 4 years to be able to play in it. When I turned 21, everyone's like, oh, are you excited to turn 21 and go to the bar and stuff like that? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm excited to turn 21 so I can go play in the main event.
Time to get the ball rolling.
I mean, to be able to finally enter and see the player field, I was pretty excited. You play like football your whole life, and you dream to win the Super Bowl. I mean, this is what I can win is like the main event.
Joe's 21 years old, trying to replace Peter Eastgate as youngest main event champ ever.
Yeah, I was on Peter Eastgate's table. I think it was like day 3 or day 4. We were just having a conversation, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna beat your record. He's like, yeah, you can do it. But I mean, we were just both joking around. The record's important, but the real goal is to win it. I mean, I play tournaments for first place. I mean, the bracelet's everything.
Lon, as a lad, all I wanted to be was an off-divorce sports writer / poker pundit, and by golly, I did it. So, Joe, you keep reaching for the stars, too.
To Darvin Moon now on the Jack Link's beef jerky pocket cam.
I love beef jerky.
9 tray of hearts into the muck.
Darvin has surprised me today. I thought he would just sit back and let the play come to him, but he has taken the play to the rest of the table.
Blinds are up once again to 4 and 800,000 with a 100,000 chip ante on Antoine Saout with ace-9 offsuit.
Saout, the second Frenchman to make the main event final table. Marc Bouchard finished 8th in 1998.
Raised to $5.4 million. That's almost all of Shulman's stack as he looks down at pocket 7s in the big blind.
There's a poker axiom: tight players don't win tournaments. Shulman, like Phil Hellmuth, trying to prove that notion wrong.
All in.
Jeff moves all in, and for $200,000 more, Saout makes the call. Jeff Shulman at risk.
Jeff's mind might flash back to his previous main event final table. Shulman was holding pocket sevens in a head when he was crippled in 2000 by Chris Ferguson.
It's a nice looking box.
By the way, ESPN.com is reporting that Coach Helmuth will be fired at the end of this main event.
Saout trying to finish off Shulman, who's had a rocky final table. Jeff hoping his sevens will work for him this time. And the flop. 10-9-6. Saout catches a 9 to take the lead. Shulman does pick up the gut shot straight draw.
The best hand.
6, 9, 10.
Oh, yeah, 7.
8 or 7.
7 or 8.
7 or 8.
Yup, this coaching staff really knows the X's and O's.
Jeff Shulman looks at a queen on the turn. That's no help.
His father, Barry, just won the World Series of Poker Europe main event. Jeff was hoping to trump Dad at the main event here, but the year of the Shulmans will be over if Jeff doesn't get a 7 or an 8 on the river.
Here is the river card. It is a 4, and that will do it. Antoine Saout knocks out Jeff Shulman in 5th place.
7th in 2000, 5th in 2009. Final table disappointment twice over for Jeff Shulman.
Proud of you, man. I'm proud of you.
Kudos for Jeff from future ex-coach Helmuth.
Saout started the day as the second short stack. It's been a steady climb to the top stack.
I know, I'm psyched.
For 5th place, Jeff Shulman earns just shy of $2 million. Now the 2009 main event is down to only 4 players, one of whom will walk out of this Penn & Teller Theater with $8.5 million and that World Championship bracelet.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Back inside the Rio, the tension is palpable. Eric Buchman, who took the chip lead and a hand against Antoine Saout while we were away, now has bet enough to put the Frenchman all in. Buchman has ace-queen, Saout in the lead with ace-king.
We know he's ahead, but is he willing to risk his main event here on what he's figuring is likely a coin flip? If he folded here, he'd have plenty of chips left, 35 big blinds.
I call.
Antoine makes the call.
You call. Okay. Ace king is good.
Buchman gets the bad news.
Darvin Moon has made ace-queen work a couple of times today coming from behind. Buchman hopes that can rub off on him.
The top 2 stacks tangling once again, but this time it's Buchman with a chip lead and a chance to knock off the stubborn French pro.
But if Buchman loses this hand, he will be down to just a little more than 20 big blinds.
Almost 90 million chips at stake. Buchman with ace-queen, trailing the Frenchman's ace-king. And there's a king for Saout! But there's hope for Eric Buchman. He did pick up a straight draw.
Buchman, though, never expects to come from behind to win. He says that's what other people do to him.
Turn card now is another king for Saout, but it does not change what Eric Buchman needs.
Buchman still needs to get very lucky.
I'm very proud of you. I'm very, very proud of you. You did very well.
It's funny, my father interrupted my second honeymoon with the very same speech.
Saout still at risk.
Buchman very behind and soon to be very short stacked. Saout stands to hold nearly half the chips on the table. Buchman needs a jack to knock off Antoine Saout.
The river card is a 6. Antoine Saout gets his chips back from Buchman with lots of interest.
Yeah.
A devastating blow to Eric Buchman.
He was such a good boy. Then he started to gamble.
Saout is again the chip leader now with almost 90 million. And Eric Buchman has to start from square one and claw his way back into this main event. Antoine Saout puts France in position to win its first main event bracelet. The Frenchman owns almost half the chips in play. Buchman the short stack, but with Moon and Cada also holding ample chips, nobody is out of this thing. Saout looks down at Queen Deuce and lays it down. Darvin Moon now. King Jack of diamonds.
Darvin says he would be a terrible poker ambassador. I disagree. Who doesn't like a poker champion who can run a chainsaw?
A raise to $3 million to Eric Buchman. Still stinging from that loss to Antoine. Can't see his hole cards.
Eric wondering what Darvin raised with. At this final table, you never know what Darvin has.
All in.
All in from Buchman for his last $23.5 million and change. The big blind, Joe Cada, gets out of the way. So the big re-raise back to Darvin Moon.
Let's do it again. Call.
Darvin calls with his king jack. Buchman shows ace 5.
Let's see if I can get a king.
Moon in a gambling mood again. He says he knocked out 27 people at the main event before the final table. And Darvin now trying to add another one to the total.
Darvin risking about half his stack with that call.
Buchman, the chip leader, not too long ago. Now hoping Darvin doesn't get lucky on him and knock him out. Mama Buchman doesn't need the stress.
Eric trying to stay alive and double up at this table. Here's the flop. Deuce 9 queen.
Got a gut shot.
Moon does pick up a gut shot straight draw.
But Eric Buchman's still nearly a 2-to-1 favorite to double up.
Darvin has shown us time and time again he never makes it easy on his opponents. All right, the turn card now. Oh, and there is the king. Even Darvin reacts to that thunderbolt. Buchman now on the edge.
Just amazing. Darvin Moon might be the 8th natural wonder of the world.
Buchman down to his last card.
Mama Buchman wishes Eric had gone to dental school.
Eric has seen river miracles at this table. Now he needs one.
Buchman needs an ace or he's done.
It is a 5 on the river, and Darvin Moon does it again. What a turn of events for Eric Buchman, the chip leader not too long ago, now leaving in 4th place with $2.5 million.
Buchman says all the bad beats he takes deep in tournaments stay with him. This one may never leave him.
$8.5 million and a world championship await one of our 3 remaining players. Will it be Darvin Moon, Joe Cada, or Antoine Saout? But for Eric Buchman, it just wasn't meant to be.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Welcome back to the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio. We are moving closer to history. Only 3 players remain in the main event. The chip leader right now, Antoine Saout, carrying the flag for France. Next is the mild-mannered logger from Maryland, Darvin Moon. And the short stack is the kid at the table, Joe Cada, who can become the youngest champ ever at age 21.
Lon, would you mind if I sing Maryland, My Maryland?
Yes, I would.
Then I won't.
Darvin Moon from Maryland will fold his 10-8. Joe Cada with pocket deuces in the small blind.
From Michigan, I have no ties there.
Cada looking to raise it up. He does raise it to a little more than $2.5 million. Now Saout in the big blind. And 2 queens for the Frenchman.
If Saout wins, he could ignite a moneymaker type effect in France. By the way, Saout won a $50 online satellite into the main event. Moneymaker won a $40 satellite in 2003.
Saout with a re-raise to $5 3/4 million. Back to young Joe Cada.
Come on.
All in.
And he moves all in.
And this would be for half of Antoine's stack. He wants to take a deep breath and make sure he hasn't run into aces or kings.
Carter.
Antoine does make the call to put Cada at risk. And an embarrassed Joe Cada shows his deuces, and Cada in big trouble.
I'm surprised Joe Cada pushed there, Lon. He had 40 big blinds left and just misread the strength of Saout's hands.
Cada has put his fans through the ringer here tonight. If Saout can hang on, he'll own almost 120 million chips.
Saout began this hand with 80 million and the chip lead. Cada will have 80 million and the chip lead if he gets lucky.
Darvin hoping Cada doesn't get lucky so he can be heads up. Here's the flop. Oh! A deuce for Cada. He gets the set.
Unbelievable for Joe Cada.
He did it to Jeff Shulman and now does it to Saout.
You don't want the best hand here. You want the best luck.
Wow, Joe Cada now in dominating positions. He's a tray on the turn. He keeps the lead.
It seems like Joe Cada should be 100 miles away now with no chips. He keeps coming back and coming back, and now he's about to become the chip leader.
Saout now the one looking for a miracle. Darvin thinking heads up, may have to wait.
Cada needs to dodge a queen to double up.
River card is a 6, and yet another big double up for Joe Cada, and with that one comes the chip lead. Saout taking the bad beat quietly.
Joe Cada could live to be 121 and never see such good fortune come his way again.
Wow, Norman, just when we thought we'd seen it all here at the final table, another incredible moment comes along. And action will begin on 21-year-old Joe Cada. Cada looks down at Ace-King, a big hand.
Suddenly, Cada has the look of a champion who's been through 12 tough rounds.
Raised to $2.5 million. To Saout now. With the pocket pair, he's got a couple of 8s.
And Antoine seems a bit more weathered than Joe Cada. Understandable, considering the blow he just took.
Saout moves all in for his final $46.5 million. Now to Darvin Moon, who's been such a big participant in so many huge hands, but he'll sit this one out. So the raise back to Joe Cada. Does he want to put more than half his stack at risk with the Ace-King?
Well, he just picked up these chips.
Call.
And he will put him to work. Saout at risk, but ahead with the pocket pair.
Saout again ahead of Joe Cada, and he's going to have to win this race to keep his main event alive.
For Cada to knock out Saout, he'll have to come from behind again.
This is for the tournament. This is for the tournament.
94 million in the pot. Darvin nonchalant. They're not his chips. But a defining main event moment, whoever wins could be headed to Titletown, whoever loses could be headed to Palookaville.
The respective cheering sections get behind their guys in this huge hand. Cada looking to pair up.
You gotta win it.
Saout knows the best hand guarantees little at this final table.
Now the flop, 5-4-5, no immediate help for Cada. And that quiets down Cada Town. Saout in good shape to double up and retake the chip lead.
Saout hoping it stays clean on the turn in the river, and he will have his chip lead back.
Turn card is a 10. The pocket 8s are still best for Antoine Saout.
Saout now a 6-1 favorite to double up.
A long, grueling main event experience for both these players hinges on this river card. Darvin doesn't look like a guy one card from heads up.
And Joe Cada's got to figure his luck's going to run out sooner or later. Cada to knock out Antoine Saout needs an ace or a king.
And now the river card. That did not just happen. Joe Cada did it again.
I just saw it. I don't believe it.
You played very well. It should be me and you.
Antoine Saout out in 3rd place.
Sorry, you deserved it. I'm sorry.
The improbable has landed on our front door. The 21-year-old and the logger will be heads up for the World Championship.
A great run for France's Antoine Saout, earning him $3.4 million.
It has been a final table of unceasing suckouts and endless twists, and it brings us Darvin Moon and Joe Cada.
Moon with a hug from his mom. He and Joe guaranteed at least $5 million. Wendy Moon sending the good news back home. Au revoir, Antoine. You made your country proud. So when we come back, Joe Cada and Darvin Moon will go heads up for the 2009 World Series of Poker Main Event bracelet and $8.5 million.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
What a scene here inside the Penn & Teller Theater.
Good luck, Coach. Good luck.
And Norman, who could have ever predicted this matchup?
It would have been a treat to see my man Phil Ivey go heads up, but to have 21-year-old Joe Cada chasing poker history against the improbable, unimaginable Darvin Moon is just incredible.
Darvin's wife and family continue to stand by their man, and the yellow-clad Cada contingent continues to grow. Everyone in this Penn and Teller Theater ready to get this heads-up underway and award $8.5 million and that bracelet.
The cash looks so sweet.
It's money.
Darvin knows money doesn't grow on trees.
As this heads-up gets underway, Joe Cada in dominant position with almost 136 million chips. Darvin Moon starting heads-up just about where he started this final table with almost 59 million. The Moon man needs to get active. In the first hand of heads-up, Darvin Moon dealt pocket queens.
Darvin has only played heads-up a couple of times in his life. Cada considers himself a heads-up specialist. He plays almost daily online.
Just a call from Darvin for 500,000. Cada with pocket nines.
Cada was chip leader at his day one session, and now is the chip leader heads up, but so much has happened in between.
A raise from Cada to $3.5 million, and the blood pressure rising here in the theater.
Boy, two big pocket pair on the first hand of heads up. This could get real interesting real quick.
Moon just calls with his pocket queens for $2.5 million. Here's the flop. Trey, king, deuce, that misses both. Moon's queens are way ahead. Joe first to act.
3.5.
That's $3.5 million.
Darvin not only has virtually no heads-up experience, he's never read a single poker book, but sometimes ignorance is bliss.
$10 million now, the raise from Darvin Moon.
Darvin not worried by the king. Frankly, I don't think Darvin is worried by anything these days.
Back to Joe Cada now. He has to wonder if Darvin has that king. But he'll make the call for $6.5 million. So a 27 million chip pot. The turn card is an ace, another overcard to both pocket pairs.
Yeah, that ace might stop either one in their tracks.
Cada does check. Does Darvin Moon know how to slow down? He's reaching for chips. The ace does not slow him down. That's $10 million.
Darvin says, I think I'm best, and if I'm not, I should hear from you now, Joe Cada, if you've got a king or an ace.
I don't think Joe Cada's going anywhere with his pocket nines, and he does make the call. Joe's mom, Ann, looking very anxious.
That call's got to worry Darvin, even if he doesn't worry.
All right, we're going to see a river card. It's another king. Darvin Moon with the check mark. Kings and queens. Cada checks again. And Darvin checks. Moon shows his two queens.
Kings and queens.
I love how Darvin doesn't wait for his opponent to show. He just turns his cards up.
And Moon will win that hand with a better two pair. A huge pot to kick off this heads up. There is so much at stake right now as we take a look at the final table ticker sponsored by FullTiltPoker.net. The men listed in the column on the right did win millions at the main event, but the champions on the left are forever a part of poker history and will never be forgotten. Action now on Joe Cada. King Jack offsuit.
At one point, Cada had 1% of the chips at this final table. He was more likely to scale Mount Everest than to win the main event.
Cada raises the $2.5 million. Darvin Moon with Queen 8 off.
If Darvin wins, he says he might buy his wife a new lawnmower.
Ooh. A call from Darvin with his Queen 8. And here's the flop. 6-5 Jack, top pair for Joe Cada. Moon missed that flop.
You know, I priced some lawnmowers at Sears. Even if he gets her a really nice Craftsman front-propelled rear bag mower, that's only going to set him back $379.99.
He said he's got to build the garage to house it, though. Moon checked. Cada bets $3.5 million with his jacks.
Raise.
And a raise announced from Darvin. Aggression comes pretty easily to this guy. He makes it $8.5 million.
Now, a riding mower, you're talking four figures, but I don't think he's talking a riding mower.
So a big test to young Joe Cada here. And he makes the call for $5 million.
Yeah, Cada thinks he's ahead. Darvin says sometimes he bets like hell when he's got it. Sometimes he bets like hell when he doesn't.
Moon pairs his queen on the turn to turn this hand upside down, and he checks top pair.
Well, Darvin didn't have it. Now he does have it, and he doesn't bet.
And Cada checks behind him. Wise check. River card is a deuce. Moon with the check mark again. And he will bet it. It's about 1/3 the pot, $7.25 million.
I love Darvin's check on the turn. It might get his value bet here paid off.
Cada has a pair of jacks.
I call.
Joe makes the call. Darvin turns over the pair of queens, and with that pot, Moon is once again the chip leader at the main event.
And Cada shows his jack and some frustration.
And Darvin Moon suddenly has the momentum heads up. Joe Cada turns around to his supporters as if to say, what do I do with this guy? The logger from Maryland chips away at the young gun Cada and once again has the chip lead.
The 2009 World Series of Poker is presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Feed your wild side. And in part by WSOPmobile.com. Get the WSOP Hold'em Legend game for your phone or iPhone. And FullTiltPoker.net. Learn, chat, and play with the pros.
The Penn and Teller Theater's still packed. We are heads up for the main event championship. Logger Darvin Moon and young Joe Cada.
Well, we made it longer than I thought we would. I figured you'd have me on the rail by now.
Playing well. You're playing really well.
Thanks. You are too.
Darvin is playing well enough to have extended his chip lead. Joe Cada with over $61 million. Darvin with almost $134 million.
Cada seems surprised about how tough Darvin has been. Darvin's humble boy routine has him close to a world championship.
Action starts on Joe Cada with Jack 9 off.
Cada sometimes plays 40 tournaments a day online, but never against Darvin. Darvin's never even played online.
Cada with a raise with his Jack 9 to $3 million. Darvin looks down at 8-7 of spades. And he will make the call for $1.8 million more as he tries to put the young Joe Cada away. The flop is 10-5-9. Cada hits a pair of nines. Moon an up and down straight draw. Darvin checks. Joe checks middle pair. Turn card now is another 10. Cada still ahead.
We've seen the same pattern from Joe Cada. I think he keeps trying to get Darvin to be overly aggressive.
Darvin's just going to check it. Now Joe, will he bet it this time? And he does. $3 million.
He sat on his hand on the flop, decides to pull the trigger here.
Darvin giving this some thought.
I'm all in.
Moves all in. That's enough to put Cada all in.
Wow. Cada says Darvin plays ABC poker. Darvin reaching deeper into the alphabet here, asking Joe Cada if he's willing to risk his main event right now. If I'm Joe Cada, I'd have a hard time believing Darvin has a 10 in his hand making that raise. But then again, this is for everything.
I call.
Cada makes the call. What a read by the young gun. And this puts Joe Cada in position to retake control of this matchup.
With just middle pair, Joe Cada makes the tough call, and what a call it was.
Darvin Moon's over-aggressive play may be handing the reins back to Joe Cada, but if Moon can hit the river, he will be the most unlikely world champion ever. We have seen both of these players catch cards at this final table. Right now, Joe Cada needs to dodge danger to survive.
Darvin's still got 7 outs to complete his improbable journey. With a jack or a 6 on the river, Darvin Moon will be the main event champion.
The river card is a tray. Joe Cada doubles up.
Joe Cada with the call of his life. And Cada sits Darvin Moon back down and regains control of this heads-up match.
So the tables are turned on this heads-up match again. Darvin Moon, the shorter stack. Joe Cada in charge.
It's good bluff, though. It was good semi-bluff.
Good call, Joe. Good call.
Good play. Honestly, you're playing awesome.
It's fun. It's fun for me. I'm learning so much off you.
Like, I play heads-up all the time. You're by far, like, a really, like, tough opponent.
Quite a bit of respect being shown between these two last men standing.
Lon, it's been a final table I don't want to see end. It has been scintillating.
Every hand has the whole crowd on the edge of their seats. The World Championship bracelet and $8.5 million up for grabs. Action starts on Joe Cada. Joe with pocket nines.
Cada was a Moneymaker baby boomer. He started playing online in his teens after watching Chris Moneymaker's main event win.
And a standard raise now to $3 million. Darvin Moon, queen jack of diamonds. And Moon looks like he's going to raise it up. He will make it $8 million to stick around.
Darvin consistent at this entire final table in his aggression.
Joe needs 5 to call.
Small one.
Now Cada is the aggressor, trying to put Darvin Moon all in.
And now it's Darvin's moment of truth. Is he willing to risk it all here?
Call.
And Darvin makes the call with his suited queen jack.
Wow, Darvin plays by different rules, and he makes that all-in call for $64 million.
So here we go, Joe Cada on the precipice of becoming the youngest world champion ever.
Phil Ivey's record as youngest main event champ stood for 19 years. Peter Eastgate's record could be wiped out in 1.
And here is the flop. 8-7. That is a good flop for Joe Cada.
Darvin takes it in stoically. Cada can't look.
Relax. Relax.
That chant has gotten Cada through so many difficult moments. And now the turn card. It's a king. That's the only paint Darvin doesn't have.
Main event champion of the world.
On day 3, Cada jokingly told Peter Eastgate he would break his record. Now he's 1 card away from doing it. Darvin Moon needs a queen or a jack, or Joe Cada will be the main event champ.
And that 7 will end it. Joe Cada rewrites poker history, becoming the youngest main event champ ever.
You played a hell of a match. Good hand. You played a hell of a match. Seriously, all the props in the world.
He's a kid with a dream come true. 21 years, 11 months, 21 days old.
So many times Joe was almost out of here, but each time managed to survive. An overwhelming moment for Joe's mom and for young Joe himself.
You win some, you lose some.
Darvin Moon, unlikely, unexpected, and until the end, unstoppable.
Oh, yeah.
The kid is now officially the comeback kid. 6,494 players started the 2009 main event with one goal.
World Series, baby!
Become world champion.
All you need is a ticket and a dream.
Hand by hand, 9 men separated themselves from the masses and stepped onto poker's biggest stage. And after one of the most explosive, dramatic, thrilling main event final tables in history, there is now only one.
Let's give it up for Joe Cada.
Down to nearly nothing, Cada battled back time after time after time. And when reality set in, the 21-year-old made poker history by becoming the youngest ever to win the main event.
I'd like to thank all my fans for coming out and supporting.
Youth has been served once again at the main event. Congratulations to Joe Cada, our 2009 main event champion. For Norman Chad, I'm Lon McCarran. We'll see you next year at the World Series of Poker.